I asked you to think about an episode that, because there's too many in this book, right? It's all of American history, but something that surprised you or that made you, gave you some understanding of where we're at today.
Yeah, and so much that I found out working on this book surprised me, but taking stock in particular, really in a systematic way, of how women participate in American political culture decades before women get the right to vote in 1920 with the 19th Amendment. And what you see when you do that is that women develop a very specific political style, this moral suasion, the moral crusade. Because you think about it, you can't vote. What you can do is tell men how to vote. And how are you going to tell men how to vote? You're powerless. Well, you're going to say, well, I have more moral authority than you. So this whole rhetoric of women being morally superior. So that's where we get abolition and temperance, later prohibition. And in the 20th century, so many moral crusades that are led by women have really not been fully examined by political historians. Or so if you think about Phyllis Schlafly, just the leading architect of modern conservatism, isn't fully appreciated in that way. She starts out in the 1950s as a member of the Kitchen Cabinet, this sort of GOP ladies auxiliary of the Federation of Republican Women's Clubs. So she goes on to, she's a McCarthyite, she campaigns for Goldwater, she's a big promoter of Goldwater. But then in 1972, she forms this organization to stop the ERA, and it is a moral crusade, and it really realigns the party system. I think we think a lot about, it's quite fashionable to talk about the Southern strategy of the Nixon administration, right? We don't think about the female strategy, but the parties realigned around questions of the equality of women. And I think now, if you think about the Me Too movement, which is, of course, a moral crusade, it comes out of that long tradition. And otherwise,
even though it's coming at a very different angle.
From a very different angle, but it also is about the law not really working, right? It's not, women have the right to vote, but the law isn't actually protecting women, granting women the equal protection, because the ERA never was ratified. So there's this kind of failure of a political settlement that we see the legacy of now.
I mean, focusing on women, telling the story of black, this is in a way bringing people into the history that were not there always.
Yeah, well, they were there in the sense that you know now, we can see now, that the Supreme Court and gender politics are not separate strands, right? Those things are intersecting. That has always been the case. It's just history has been written in such a way as to artificially divide them. So sort of systematically, not some grand conspiracy, but just about how historians decided to write about the American past. They set aside the things that women do as apolitical. They set aside slavery as an economic issue, not a political issue. So there's this weird, almost like a segregated past.